By the end of this podcast, you'll know exactly when this TA director decides to pull in the big guns and use recruitment agencies. Michael, thanks so much for joining us today. Before we get into it, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you so much, Tom. Thanks for having me. My name's Michael. I'm a talent acquisition director. I've got 20 plus years experience in recruitment. Started off in recruitment agencies, in finance, and then moved into London to work in the media agency space, rec agency side, through to when digital boomed. And then I moved in-house about 15 years ago, and I've spent most of my career working for leading advertising agency groups, building in-house TA functions and teams around PR, creative and media. So yeah, been around a bit.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us today. Let's get into it. First question, simple one. As a TA director, have you used recruitment agencies?
Yes, absolutely. We'll continue to do so as well. A bit of a myth buster there for any rec agency folk out there. Leadership teams and TA teams do see rec agencies as a key part of their recruitment strategy.
What are the internal triggers on your side that makes you decide to use a recruitment partner versus your team of TA partners?
Two key reasons for partnering with a recruitment agency: hard to fill roles that have been worked for some time and are really tough or niche or tricky. Roles that are really, really critical. TA teams will almost always be working on those to start with, but may require partnership in some instances. And also on briefs that are a high workload. So maybe admin support roles or junior entry level roles. And when I say higher workload, they're roles which require recruiters to have met the candidates and know them, so beyond what's on paper, and therefore it makes better time spent for those internal recruiters to be working on more maybe senior end briefs or more specialist briefs which they know. And in the second instance, when we'd use recruitment agencies as a value add partner, so gathering market insights, leaning on rec agencies or third parties or external partners for salary advice, competitor insights, knowing what your competitors are doing,
Yeah.
also how talent views your brand. That's really insightful for TA teams. Any insights on DE&I that they might be hearing out in the marketplace. And also, teams and businesses are always curious to know what talent wants in a role, and want from their employer. So all of these things are really important for TA teams. Heads of TA and TA teams can get pulled into meetings or asked for insights all the time by their internal stakeholders. So they need to stay ahead of the curve. And partnering with external partners gives them that gateway to the outside world. So there's absolutely areas where rec agencies can add value for TA teams.
That's such a good point because over the years myself, I've been in TA for 15 years and I've had mainly when it comes to the insights side of things for recruitment agencies, it's salary surveys. And I just look at that and think, if only you could provide insights outside of salary surveys, if only you understood the end-to-end process that we are going through where insights outside of just salary surveys could help. So that's quite a big one. With regards to agency use, how do you decide which agency do you use, especially if you don't have a PSL?
The big key driver is trust and knowing that you're partnering with a recruiter that you can trust with your time and trust with the information they're giving you. So obviously the first agencies that you're going to go to are the ones that you know over time. Developing relations with TA teams that you don't know is a bit harder and is a bit more of the longer game. And I'll probably go into a bit more detail and some advice and tips on that later on. A rec agency you know and trust is really, really key. So I've alluded to saving time, but you also want to work with an agency who's going to be an ambassador of you and your brand and an extension of your team. you're working with an external partner, they're an extension of your company. So you want to trust them with your brand and how they're going to behave out there. The other key things is rec agencies that have a strong knowledge of the market and can demonstrate that. So it's showing TA teams that you do have those insights and you do have that market knowledge. And you'll just make a general call on how a rec agency will behave when they're approaching you, when you're dealing with them, and the info that they're sharing. The quantity and quality of the communication is really key. A TA team is always going to be making a judgment call on how you're behaving with them, because that will be a reflection on how they're behaving on behalf of you in the market.
Something I found as well with speaking to agencies over the years is about how their value proposition comes across. And I think this is going to go against the grain a little bit, but too many recruitment agencies don't own the fact that they're recruitment agencies. A lot of recruitment agencies I speak to say, well, we're not a recruitment agency, we're a talent partner, we're talent specialists. Then when you have a deeper dive and you talk about that and realize that they don't actually understand the world of TA, just say, well, own it. You're a recruitment consultant, and that's what we need. So I would love to see a shift in that kind of ownership of branding. We're a recruitment agency. We do understand TA. This is how we can help. Let's get into the juicy stuff, right? I've spoken a little bit about value proposition there, but what would stand out on a cold email from a recruitment agency? Because we've all received dozens, hundreds of cold emails. I've deleted most of them, and I'm sure you have. I suppose a more relevant question on that is, what doesn't land?
Well enough, I don't actually delete them, weirdly. I always like to pop into search if somebody pops up and just see what the history is there.
Okay,
Those
interesting.
emails will stay in that inbox because there'll be handy reference points. The key things with emails is, as I alluded to a second ago, is the quality of those and the quantity. Less is more. I know it's really tempting to send emails frequently, but you don't want to get into a TA person's inbox for the wrong reasons. You don't want to be remembered for the wrong reasons. Yeah, you'll be remembered if you're spamming all the time, but you'll be remembered as somebody not to use because they're going to use up too much of your time. You want to work with a recruiter who's going to save your time. I don't know if every TA person is like this, but weirdly for me, and something that I say a lot, is if I don't hear from you, I'm more likely to use you
Yeah,
because it means you're not going to be hassly, you're going to save my time. Timing is key. When and how often? Probably advise in terms of timing, try and avoid contacting TA teams when you know they're either going to be busy or they're going to be bombarded by the recruiters. So classic time is first week or two back in the new year. When you've got an out of office from a recruiter, don't contact them as soon as they get back from holiday. They're going to have so many other things
yeah,
and priorities to deal with. And, you can't reply to every single recruiter. The fact that a TA person doesn't come back to you isn't actually a sort of bad thing. It's just we don't have the time to spend replying to everyone as much as we really want to. That's another myth as well. I used to
yeah,
be a rec agency recruiter as well. And when I first went in-house, I gave so much time to all the recruiters because I knew the world they were in and what they were going through, but then very quickly realized I had so many things to juggle in my day. It just wasn't conducive for me to be dealing with all the rec agencies that I may or may not use all the times. And, in terms of the content of the email, keep it brief and to the point. Don't send long messages. Don't send long messages on LinkedIn either. Keep them to the point and supportive and understanding. So, just wanted to get my details across. We can help you with salary benchmarking, competitor analysis, some of the other things that I mentioned earlier. Just be there and then say, look, I might give you a shout back in a few months' time. So I'd probably say once a quarter, maybe, just to sort of check in. Did you find that information useful? But don't make it committal or assumptive, i.e., so let's schedule a call in for
yeah.
next Monday. When you don't even know the person, that's another thing probably worth avoiding. So it just comes across as just that bit too pushy. I know the temptation is there to do it, but just hold back and just have your details there and periodically show that. And yeah, what you mentioned earlier, be honest. Don't call yourself a talent acquisition director. Just, be honest about what you are
Yeah.
and what you do and how you can support. It just, just gives the wrong signals as you're trying to sort of dress yourself up as something maybe you're not. Just be totally to the point how you can help.
Going back to the emails there, some of the, I remember one instance, and if he's listening, he'll know who he is. I was name dropped in an email, right, from an agency. It was a cold email from an agency, probably one of the best emails. It was about 3 years ago. He name dropped. He said, "Oh, I was speaking to such and such who he used to work with. He said really good things about you," and that made me sort of stand up and think, "Oh yeah, okay, oh I remember that guy. Yeah, good." Email back, and we had a good sort of email conversation. Actually, I've met up with him a couple of times for coffee. We speak regularly, and actually, he's a trusted agency in my network. I've actually fired some business his way.
Keep it positive and supportive. And remember, like, you may have relationships with people across the business, but keep those relationships positive and supportive and open and transparent. I've been on desk before where the recruiters phone me up and then phone somebody up who sits 2 seats down from me, not thinking that we probably know each other. Internally you have such a good relationship with everybody. So it's just worth being, really, really positive and supportive to everyone you come across in those teams.
And with regards to call to action as well, you make a good point about, so many first emails end with, "When's good for you? Let's book in 15
Yeah.
minutes. And as someone who does a lot of business development and sales myself, I would never want a meeting with anyone until I've had a conversation about their pain points, right? So
Yeah.
if you manage to get a conversation with someone in TA and you talk about them, you talk about their pain points, you don't talk about yourself, you don't say, "I do this, I do that, I do that." You identify their pain points, and only then you can have a conversation. And if you
Yeah.
go into that virtual coffee or face to face meeting knowing their pain points, you'll have a much better meeting and it will be less
Absolutely.
awkward, less forced. So, yeah, my advice from that is don't put a call to action in the first email.
Just say, look, I'm here. This is what I can offer you in as brief way as you possibly can. So I think it's worth laying out sometimes the areas you cover because there's so many different agencies that do certain things. And sometimes as a recruiter, you're thinking, who does that specialism? What can I just put into my search in my emails of who covers that? But also briefly, look, we can help you beyond recruitment. So if you ever want any advice on the market, if you ever want to know what your competitors are doing, if you ever want to know what talent are talking about, what talent and how talent view your company, I'm here. Okay. So just to let you know it's here, and may give you a shout in a couple of months' time, or, when's best time, what's best for you. And then just, sort of step back. So and leave that and then maybe check in again in a few months' time. It is tough. It is tough because recruiters will have agencies that they know. So we're playing the long game here, right? Now, I know there are successful recruiters out there that bombard and play the numbers game and continue to chip away,
Yeah.
right? And they're really resilient. It's that tenacious, aggressive nature that's got them where they are. But hopefully this podcast will give everyone some insight into the world of an internal TA person and how you can develop partnerships and business with those TA teams longer term, get more from them and get more from your time and your candidate's time as well. So yeah, that's the slight shift in difference. And if you really want to add value and really want to help people and businesses, it's about partnering, right?
It is. It's about trust and partnership. And a lot of agencies watching this will remember back to the days of when they were trained to bypass TA, spec CVs
Mm-hmm.
in, be, as you say, be pushy. And that's great for short term wins. But when it comes to
Yeah.
long term partnership, that's not it. And as you say yourself, you're ex agency yourself, so you know all the tricks. I'd imagine you get a lot of connection requests from agencies all the time.
So many more connection requests than from any other type of business or party, actually. So it can be, I wouldn't say overwhelming, but there can be a lot. And I will connect with a rec agent that I've met and that I know. Okay, so if I've actually met or had a conversation with them, then yes, I'm happy to do that. But TA teams can't accept requests from all the recruiters. I think one of the main reasons, well, firstly, that would be our network, is just recruitment agencies if we did that. But secondly, as soon as you accept a request, you're inviting in for a conversation essentially. So then that opens up a message, which then sometimes you feel obliged to reply, and then that just continues. Again, it comes down to the time thing.
If you accept a connection request,
Yeah,
within 24 hours,
yeah.
you're going to get a great to connect. This is what
Yeah,
we do. Let's
yeah,
book in some
yeah.
time.
And if you get that connection request, occasionally there might be something on a recruiter's profile that very occasionally might hit the mark. You think I'll accept that request. Again, go back to the advice that I gave with your messaging. Keep it brief and supportive and non-assumptive. But yeah, and equally don't get too offended if you don't get replies first time. And don't follow up within a day or two with another
Yeah.
message if you haven't got a reply as well. That goes for email and connection requests. It's about the space and the support.
It's tough. A lot of recruitment agencies use LinkedIn automation, which is something that we shouldn't really talk about. LinkedIn doesn't like it. You get a request. If you don't accept it, you might get a like on an old post, which is automated. And then when you accept the request, you'll get that message, great to connect. Then you get another message, and then it's all in sort of 1 to 2 days sequences. But tip there, if you just reply with a simple thumbs up emoji on the first message, you cancel their sequence and you won't get any more messages. If you get the connection request from the recruitment agency and then you get the message saying great to connect, you're getting a sales message tomorrow. Send them the thumbs
Yeah.
up emoji, cancel sequence.
I have to hold my hands up. I do use the thumbs emoji a fair bit these days just to sort of get through and just as a nice acknowledgement. I reply to everybody that messages me except rec agencies that I don't know, unfortunately. Everybody always gets a reply. I feel really passionate about this, that anyone that reaches out to me for any advice will get a reply. But I do caveat that, unfortunately, I can't reply to every rec agency that contacts me that I don't know. It will often be a thumbs up in a lot of cases. But
As a TA director, I'm sure you face a lot of pressures in your role. Where can recruitment agencies unknowingly disrupt your process?
few instances here and a few tips. Okay, so the first one I would say is sending spec CVs. I completely get it. Okay, this is all about talent and getting the best talent. Businesses at the end of the day just want to get talent. You see, I know you want to spec them in to demonstrate that great people, you want to help good people. But just to give a bit of insight into what happens internally to actually hire people, and there is often a very robust and strict approval process which TA work through with finance, often in a sort of weekly meeting with things coming up. But in order to hire people, we need a sign off and approval process, sometimes which might be at loggerheads with what teams want as well. So internal TA teams are working with hiring teams on that approval process as well. Hiring teams might be really under pressure and really under resourced, but they might not have the sign off. But not only to hire people, but also to pay fees on people that come
Yeah.
through. So that's another layer of conversation. And in order to go through that, TA teams and in-house TA teams put a lot of resource and time into owning their own brand and reaching out to talent direct. We've got ATS systems, which are incredibly expensive. We have partnerships with various job boards, and we want to ensure we're getting the most of that investment. So before we have these to us, often when you send a spec CV, they come added with terms. So we might not be in a position to actually consider that candidate, yet unknowingly you've ruled your candidate out from actually going into, actually getting into that business for some time, unless you were to waiver a fee, or the TA team will have to bend the rules and go through all the pain of having these conversations to get this signed off. TA teams have a strategy here, but yeah, also it is, quite difficult for them to get things signed off operationally as well. So you're actually making things quite difficult. And also, if you're sending top talent to hiring managers, it's even more difficult because you're dangling that carrot, and hiring managers really want to hire that person. So you're
Yeah,
essentially forcing
absolutely.
people in. Now, it can be a way in, and you can get a fee from that but that's the short-term gain, because again, you're going to be remembered for the wrong reasons. You'll get the initial fee out of it, and then you won't be used again. However, a really top tip for you, if you ever did find a really brilliant candidate that you really, really wanted to help, I know this is not going to sit comfortably with a lot of recruiters, but honestly, if you really wanted to help that person out and get a foot in the door and open a door, then offer it to a TA team for free and say, I've got the most amazing candidate. I just want to help them and I just want to work with you. And I know this candidate really loves your business and really wants to work for you. Notice you got this role. I don't need a fee. I just want to help them out, but it'd be really nice to catch up with you in the future, have a coffee. I am telling you, 9 times out of 10, I'd be amazed if that TA team didn't come back to you and think the world of you and sort of feel like they owed you as well. So look, we'll keep you on our books in the future. This is about how you develop a relationship with that TA team. And when you've got a relationship with that TA team are also going to make best use of your time as well and ensure that you're briefed on stuff when you need to be briefed on it. And it's about building that trust relationship again. So another tip that I would say is TA copied in on things. You know, if you have got relationship with hiring managers, which undoubtedly many rec agents will, they will be on your side in terms of helping you and ensuring that you're making best use of your time working with those
Yeah.
hiring managers on things that are relevant and we can pay fees for. This is all about teamwork, and transparency, internal teams and external working together. That's what recruitment's about. So keep TA team copied in on all your comms.
Completely agree. And that tip about offering a candidate for free, I'm sure many recruiters will be saying absolutely not at that.
And this is about the longer term pipeline and working longer term with people. Another tip as well, you'll tend to find the bigger groups and companies will have bigger TA teams, which should put more investment and resource into their functions and more robust processes. So with the bigger companies, it is going to be more of a long term biz dev mission. The smaller independent ones will be a bit more flexible in how they can use. So that might be turned around quicker, but it's about working with TA teams on scaling their team when rec loads fluctuate. So there is a place for recruiters in that instance.
And on the flip side of that, what pressures do you face as a TA director where agencies can actually come in and add value outside of recruiting, outside of insights?
Workforce planning is a key thing in internal TA teams, thinking ahead to the future. Any instances where TA can partner with a trusted rec agency or recruitment partner on understanding talent, understanding the market, understanding any sort of key trends, and just reach out when they need that help and that advice. Also, a TA team will often have not just one, but a handful of recruitment agency partners they would go to for this advice, so that they can get a really qualified view of the market as well. So it's not just going to be one or two, there'll be a relationship, probably about half a dozen or so.
Something that I have done as head of TA myself is I've invited agencies into our offices, not just for a meeting or a catch up, just to say, right, look, come into our offices, bring your laptop, do your own work, but just absorb yourself in our culture for the day, in our offices and the way we work, so you can sell that better to our candidates. We'll be there as TA. But the added bonus there is if there are senior leaders or other hiring managers just floating around the office that day, they'll get to meet them. So hiring managers can meet the agency partners that we use, and it's more of a partnership.
It's the trust thing again. You're going to invite people in that you can trust and develop those relationships and they're going to help you. Like, for example, if a hiring manager then briefed your recruitment agency partner on a role and it hadn't come from TA, you want to trust that recruiter to come to TA and go, I've just been briefed on a role. And then TA would go, right, let's help work this out and how we can support that hiring team. But we can equally also say, go slow on that because there's no approval in the background, which that hiring manager might not be aware of, which is really going to save the recruitment agent's time, rushing to get really great candidates, getting great candidates through that process and then not being in a position to offer could disrupt everything there, the rec agency side for everyone. So as I say, it's still working in that team. But Yeah, coming to work in offices is a fantastic idea, and it's going to happen when you've built that relationship. Wait to be invited in, as well, or unless you've got that really good relationship, is
Yes,
there a
of course.
chance I could come in to work in your offices? So that comes with time.
And final question and wrap up. As an ex-agency recruiter yourself, what advice would you give recruitment agencies, recruitment consultants who are focusing on business development right now?
A few little tips and a bit of a summary sort of wrap up on all, some of the points they've mentioned before. So first off, don't bypass TA. You might get the quick win, but it won't help TA or yourself in the long run. You might have good relationships with your managers, which is great, but if you want to build long-term relationships and get more work through, make best use of yours and your candidates' time by working with that TA team. If the approach is cold and you don't know that team or that TA partner, just be patient, okay, and be helpful and supportive to what they need. Forcing your way in may get you remembered, but potentially not for the best reasons.
Yeah.
Rec agencies aren't used as much as they used to be. That's true, but I promise they are still used. Okay, so there is a place. So you just need to take your time and build your business development pipeline over time. And if that involves having a range of businesses on your business development list, so you can keep busy and keep those reach outs going and that volume, then absolutely do that. As mentioned, the larger ones will take a bit longer, but then the smaller independent companies that can't invest so much in their TA teams and need scalable solutions will be more flexible to use. That's the truth of it, really. TA teams are pretty lean now. There's been a period over the past year or two, especially with AI and automation coming in, where businesses are being ever more resourceful in terms of how they invest in in-house TA. That therefore means that if a business suddenly had to grow very quickly or the recruiting volume suddenly exploded and things were very reactive, the businesses need to lean on external partners for that support and to scale their teams. So there's absolutely opportunity for recruitment agents out there. So keep the faith, be a bit more considered and clever about it. And yeah, hopefully some of those tips will help in your BD endeavors.
I agree. Thank you so much. And just one last point on that. I think
Yeah.
you're right about companies, especially this year onwards, and I talk about this all the time, using more and more third party recruitment companies like agencies. But it's about agencies thinking outside of the contingency box. A lot more agencies should be thinking about offering committed end projects or sprints and anything but contingency. Retained is a big word at the moment,
Yeah.
as is embedded talent. But
Yeah.
that is a conversation for another time, Michael. Thank you so much for your time today. We've covered a lot of juicy topics, and I hope it's been helpful for all those agency recruiters out there. And we'll catch up with you soon.
Thank you very much. And thanks for everything you do as well.